current Los Angeles Lakers small forward and future Hall of Famer Paul Pierce recently said in an interview with Mike and Mike that the league just isn't as competitive as it used to be. And this is a stance that's pretty much seen by most people who are of a prior generation, my generation, older. He said in an interview, quote, "I don't think the league is as competitive as it was, let's say, 10 years ago, where you got the superstars going at one another, talking smack, creating rivalries. We don't have rivalries anymore. The closest thing to it is Golden State and Cleveland, which could end up being a great rivalry, but outside of that, you don't have any individual rivalries. A Kobe versus LeBron, individual rivalries are just not there anymore." He went on to go on and say, when people say, well, maybe it's different, when the question was asked to him, well, maybe it's just a friendly, players a little bit more friendly, but the rivalry is still there. He went on to say, "I don't buy into that. We were friends then, don't get me wrong. I have friends too, but you wouldn't know it by the way we competed on the court, and you couldn't see it. After the game, when we're out having dinner, that's fine, but you can never tell who was friends on the court the way we competed. I don't really buy into that, man. I believe the person who really has the 80s, 90s, early 2000s genes of competitive fire are dead and gone. You have about one or two guys who I see that has it. Russell Westbrook and maybe a DeMarcus Cousins or something. But pretty much everyone else, it's a different type of attitude." And I pretty much agree. I think I'd have to throw in a Chris Paul into that equation, but he may not necessarily consider Chris Paul, because Chris Paul came in, the mid-2000s, so he may consider Chris Paul more of a tweener as far as generations, but generally speaking, I think you include Chris Paul. But generally, I agree with Paul Pierce. There's a definite difference in the level of intensity of an NBA game, even just going back into the early 2000s, but in particular in the 90s. In the 90s, even bad teams could have a good competitive game. Today's NBA, the way that it's played, it's almost like a business type game. It's hard for me to explain. It's depersonalized. It seems as though players are kind of going through the motions a lot of times. It's nothing. It's no passion in the game. It's almost like in today's basketball, the announcers are trying to sell you, and then they're trying to intensify a boring game. They have to work at making a game interesting. Whereas back in the day, a lot of the announcers, most of them didn't have to really do anything because the game itself sold itself. But that's just my opinion. Tell me what you guys think.